We're expanding our in-depth crime series, highlighting cases both cold and recently unfolding. This is Arizona Crime Uncovered. I'm Ashley Holden. We begin with a case that started a movement, the tragic death of Preston Lord 1 year ago in October 2023. We're taking a look at the impact on the East Valley and where the case stands now, the evidence included in reports and new court documents. We sat down with Queen Creek's top cop who oversaw the department's first homicide investigation.
This tragedy continues to affect both me and my detectives, the whole agency, and to be frank, the community. This was something that none of us wanted to ever see in this community.
October 28th, 2023.
Queen Creek Police. Hi. One of our neighbors is having a very large party, and there's cars parked all over the street. They're running through all the yards, and somebody just threw up in my front yard.
An out-of-control Halloween party ending with 911 calls and a crime scene in Queen Creek.
Never in a million years did he think of what he was walking into. He was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
I got a call, about a potential homicide that occurred, or at least, a significant injury to Preston. Obviously, I didn't know him at the time.
Preston Lord attacked, beaten, taken to the hospital, where the 16-year-old tragically died 2 days later.
I spent 2 nights at the hospital sleeping on the floor. I'd say easily the most challenging things that I've ever had to go through.
To hear Nick say, it's okay, buddy, you can go. You don't have to be strong anymore. That was probably one of the worst days of my life.
I know that you've talked to me about, in the hospital, the idea for the bracelets.
In my mind, I was just like, this isn't how his story is going to end. It can't end like this. And so we thought, well, what do kids like? Kids wear bracelets. So we decided to create a movement called Justice for Preston Lord.
In orange, one of the teens' favorite colors, the community surrounded the Lord family at walks, wearing bracelets and shirts, even putting up signs in their community.
Light the night until Thanksgiving for Preston. They want to let the family know that they support them, that we're behind you, and we as a community, we will get answers to the unknowns right now.
And I think everyone feels like Preston Lord, and I don't even know Preston Lord or the Lord family, but the community now sees him as our son.
A lot of people are feeling really anxious that there have been no arrests, and I know that's really frustrating for myself as well, but I really want us to be mindful that law enforcement is doing a very thorough investigation, and that takes time, especially when teenagers are involved.
At the forefront of every day, every weekend, every long night, we are focused on making sure that we get this case to where it needs to be.
What followed after that was an investigation that spanned months. It involved walkthroughs, interviews.
Intensive is a great word to put that, is that this was a very difficult investigation in the sense that it wasn't just, it was very, very comprehensive and very broad. While not very complicated in general, there were so many people to talk to. And, a lot of people felt like we had, everything was already there, recorded, done, what's the problem? And, we couldn't really share those things. It was every day, 12, 15, 18 hours, nonstop. Sometimes we worked overnight every night on multiple shifts to try to get all these interviews done. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of people that had to be contacted, recontacted, re-interviewed, walkthroughs, as you said, just to try to nail down all of the details and the evidence that we needed.
You've told us that this attack happened very quickly, and that at one point you told us you believed you understood the why. Can you explain the why behind what happened October 28th?
I don't think any of us can understand the why behind the motivation of these people. And, we've talked about this, and we've kind of named this a kind of a swarming event. And I think that's very apt as far as how this happened, is that it's quick, it's fast, it's multiple people. And it's something that we've never seen before, at least in the valley here. So that was a unique part of this, is that we were investigating something and a motive that we really didn't understand at the time. Certainly, there were some things that led up to it, and that'll come out in trial. But the type of attack and the way it happened was just new. And so we had to really adapt and understand how to investigate that.
As that investigation played out, ABC 15 hearing from people in the East Valley about a group known as the Gilbert Goons. When did you learn about the group, the Gilbert Goons?
December of 2022, when one of my good friend's sons was attacked at In-N-Out Burger.
Videos sent to our newsroom showing multiple other violent assaults.
It's hard to understand how the dots were connected when you have videos like that with hashtags.
In December, Gilbert police saying they didn't have any reports, victims, or suspects connecting the group to any alleged reported criminal activity. But what followed was over a dozen arrests in teen violence cases.
In court, a Mesa detective with the gang unit alleging the teen suspect is a part of the Gilbert Goons.
How did that not tip you off to thinking, these are some of the same faces that we're seeing? What is happening here?
So again, you have to keep in mind what we know now compared to what we knew then. When those incidents were happening in November and December, the majority of those were not reported to the police.
Gilbert PD eventually taking over a multi-agency investigation into the Gilbert Goons, which they have since classified as a hybrid criminal street gang.
The group ranged in size, and initially its members participated in a fight club type of agreement.
Before Preston's death, had you been aware that there was an escalating teen violence issue?
That was one of the things that we really started early on, is working our downtown areas where kids gather. So we started that from the very beginning, extra patrols and different, party patrol on the weekend, looking for that kind of stuff. This particular type of attack was so new to everybody. It was just something that wasn't necessarily on everybody's radar of the way that happened. And, as pieces were put together, and I think Preston was really the catalyst behind a lot of it, is that brought everything to light.
In Preston's case, it took 2 months for Queen Creek Police to submit charges to the Maricopa County Attorney, and another 2 before an investigative grand jury indicted 7 people for murder. We saw SWAT go out. Multiple arrests happen at least that day. What was that like for you?
There's some satisfaction there, but it was a tense day, to be honest with you. We had multiple sites, multiple locations, trying to track down a lot of people at the same time. We wanted to do it safely, get everybody in custody without any type of events, and that was a logistical challenge to do that.
What has happened here today is a massive step forward in the quest for justice for Preston Lord.
We are standing where Preston's life was taken, but we are here to take what his life meant back. These arrests are only the first steps in getting justice for Preston. There will be long court battles, and we would like this community to continue to support the Justice for Preston Lord movement.
As the suspects started appearing in court, new allegations and details emerged.
Any comment on the allegations that Talon was taken out of the area after the attack?
The internet is full of misinformation.
That's from court documents.
The Maricopa County Attorney's Office confirming the night Preston was attacked, a chain necklace was stolen from someone only known as Victim A. At some point, Preston and a group ran, they were chased, and Preston was beaten.
He was also involved in either the destruction or the attempted destruction of evidence and colluded with others about the potential story.
Weeks later, an over 1,100-page police report released by Queen Creek Police detailing the investigation, alleged messages sent by some of the suspects, and tips given to police. We and the public have seen a very lengthy police report, and for most, that's probably the only evidence that they've really seen in depth. What other evidence can you tell us that you have in this case?
The police report refers to a lot of the ancillary stuff that we have. Obviously we do a scene investigation, and there was some DNA evidence that we sent off, and I can't go into great detail about those things just because it'll come up in trial. But we haven't released all of the video that we have, obviously, because it is just hours and hours and hours of video that have to be redacted. So we're still working on that to eventually get that out to everybody.
Originally, all 7 suspects held on a $1 million bond, but within months, some had their bonds reduced. 3 suspects even bonding out by August.
We are not supportive of it. The original judge set the bond at a certain dollar amount, and we just feel that it should not be reduced. The attack on Preston was a deliberate attack. It wasn't just a couple kids throwing punches.
Can you say what it was like to see the courtroom filled with orange today?
It's amazing to see the courtroom filled with orange. It just shows how invested the community is, not only for the injustices that were done to Preston, but also for the community at large and the issues of teen violence.
In September, Dominic Turner, Jacob Meissner, and Talon Renner all fought to get a bond reduction.
The damage and loss of Preston is irreplaceable to our family. His attackers had no regard for who he was, what he stood for, his family, or his friends. We have suffered to no end while the defendants hid and ran, hoping they wouldn't get caught for murder.
Regarding the strength of the evidence, we discussed that in our reply, and we are on the other side of the discovery. And again, there's a tremendous amount of discovery that we are going through. But one thing I find to be extraordinarily important when we're talking about change in circumstances is at the initial appearance, it was stated that there were messages that had been sent by Mr. Renner to an ex-girlfriend. And as the discovery has come out, those messages, in fact, do not exist. At least they've not been disclosed at this point. I also think that when you look at the state's response and our reply, it is a lot of hearsay statements through a tremendous amount of telephone, however you want to call it, of high school kids who are saying they think they saw things.
This case is not put together by triple hearsay, or someone would call it a telephone game. This case is put together by eyewitness testimony and admissions by defendants.
Court documents filed by prosecutors revealed more messages from the night of the attack. Those documents say Renner and others returned to the scene, allegedly creating multiple snaps.
He's at the scene. As you look at the video, the victim is on the ground there. There's a CPR being done on him to try to keep him alive. And he's snapping. He said, "I just killed someone."
Is really two key things: securing your appearance and protection of the community. Protection of the community is largely served by electronic monitoring and house arrest and the other significant restrictions. Not exclusively, but significantly. Not having contact with each other is yet another one of those factors. All three will be on house arrest. Another term is each of you are going to be subjected to random drug testing if you're released.
A judge lowering the 3 suspects' bonds. In October, Turner and Renner both released from custody. To this day, only 2 of the 7 suspects remain behind bars, all of them still charged with murder. This is your department's first homicide investigation. Looking back now, how do you think that your team did?
I would say they did extraordinarily well. Again, given the circumstances behind the way that we had to investigate this and the limited amount of detail that we had from the beginning and the way we had to get to the final conclusion was just an extraordinary amount of just determination. So I could not be more proud of my staff.
Do you think there's anything that they could have done to break up parties before or take any kind of action that could have prevented this?
So we've talked about this at nauseum, to be honest with you, and some of the people are getting mistaken when calls came in, and we've laid that out in great detail. When the officers responded to that first call that everybody talks about, the complaint was really focused on teens that were walking down the street and causing some disruption, and the officers went there. The police don't have all-encompassing action to stop everybody's behavior. We respond to criminal matters. Certainly we respond to civil-related issues, but we don't have authority to just take over places and stop things unless there's a law that allows us to do that. So in this particular case, in this particular location, the party wasn't even identified because it wasn't disruptive at the time that we responded.
I know last time we talked, it was before the finalization of the Gilbert Goons investigation. Can you say today if anyone who is allegedly tied to Preston's murder has any ties to the Gilbert Goons?
The Gilbert Goons investigation and the idea to determine the gang part of it, that really, you have to talk to Gilbert about that process. Although we were supportive of everything they were doing, that really did reside with Gilbert's investigation. If there was a tie of gang activity, we would have submitted that. We don't have enough probable cause to charge those crimes, so it would not be it would be speculation to say anything past that. I don't have evidence in order to do that.
Where does Preston's investigation stand today?
Well, so, we always leave these kind of things open in case new evidence comes in or something to bolster the case, any new tips. We still get occasional tips that come in that we have to process. A lot of it is tips on things that we already know or information that's been regurgitated or stuff that's online that's just a copy of what's been done before. But we still process them. We want to make sure that we're not missing anything. But we're at the point now where we have no other actionable items. While the case is technically still open, we don't have any more, we don't have enough evidence to do any other type of charges. What we have has been submitted to the county attorney, but it remains open.
I asked you this at one of our first interviews. Do you feel confident that there will be justice for Preston?
I do. The court process is what it is, and it's not perfect. But we have a committed county attorney. We have a great prosecutor. We have a committed team here that is going to continue to make sure that we're ready for trial. Now, while we can't control everything, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure we hold these people accountable, and I'm confident we'll do that.
After Preston's death, multiple cities and towns in the East Valley making change, passing restrictions on brass knuckles and changing or creating ordinances focused on unruly gatherings. Some starting committees and task forces. The county attorney now pushing for new legislation targeting group attacks.
He was genuine, he was kind, he was loving. He wanted a future for himself and he worked hard for it.
1 year ago, none of us knew each other. We were each living our everyday lives, unaware of what was coming. Then, in an instant, everything changed.
Today marks 1 year since Preston was assaulted. 1 year of heartache, 1 year of living a nightmare, 1 year of living a life without Preston in it.
1 year later, the community coming together at a Light the Night event to honor Preston.
Preston has connected each and every single one of us here today. From the orange shirts, to the kindness rocks, to the ribbons, the bracelets, the candles, and the signs throughout the community.
It's amazing to see our community come together. Remembering all of those events we went through together, and his first game without him, and his jersey being put on his chair, and just experiencing this first year along with those that loved him, and even not knowing him personally, but that connection that we all feel.
Making it clear the work is far from over. Everyone has said Preston has shined a light on the East Valley, but also teen violence. Where do you think the East Valley is with kind of that battle against teen violence?
I think the awareness is there, and now it's the education step, the continuous pervasive conversation of what's next, what do we do now?
1 year later, I was talking to Chief Bryce about this. They didn't have gang charges to submit. We've talked so much about the Gilbert Goons. How do you think the community now feels about that group?
I think they're kind of conflicted because the reality is some are still out there. So I think there's still some trepidation around who's out there, who's learned their lesson, have they learned their lesson, where do we go from here?
It's been a year, and even last weekend we had people hosting parties. I cannot say enough why I don't understand that people don't understand the context of what's happening here, and they need to understand the gravity of the situation and work with us. And I'm not saying it's everybody, but we do have people that still don't understand what's going on here. And we just ask the public, when you see these things, call us.
And the focus, still justice for Preston Lord.
We must stand united and let our voices be heard. Justice for Preston is the resonating message. The assailants getting full prosecution for their wrongful acts. Anything other than that will be insufferable. Injustice for Preston is like murdering him a second time, tarnishing everything that he lived to be. Son, we miss you dearly and will love you for eternity. You are forever etched in our hearts, always loved, never forgotten, and forever missed.
All the suspects in Preston's case have pleaded not guilty. Court records show that prosecutors don't plan to offer any plea agreements, and any kind of settlement or agreement would have to be initiated by the defendant. Their next court date is set for November 20th. A trial date at the time of airing set for summer 2025. ABC 15 has public records requests still out for this and other teen violence cases. We'll follow all of those developments here on Arizona Crime Uncovered. I'm Ashley Holden. Thank you for watching Arizona Crime Uncovered. We're working to bring awareness to crimes where victims are still awaiting justice and also provide an in-depth look at cases still unfolding. Each episode breaks down a timeline of the case, where it stands now, and if any help is needed from the community. You can watch on abc15.com, the ABC 15 mobile app, Roku, YouTube, or any of your other streaming platforms.